Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he laid out proposals to make New York City more resilient to the next storm here and other effects of climate change today. Samantha Liebman, Files 1, she had more on that.
Mayor Michael Bloomberg says New York City was already preparing for the effects of climate change, but Hurricane Sandy created a new urgency.
We expect that by mid-century, up to a quarter of all New York City's land area, where 800,000 residents live today, will be in the floodplain.
Tuesday, he presented key elements of a 450-page report updated by a special task force following Hurricane Sandy. It lays out the risks to the city and offers 230 different recommendations, some already underway, to protect the coastline.
In addition to dunes, beach widening, and tidal barriers, our coastal defense plan also calls for building a diverse network of bulkheads, levees, and other protections.
The mayor is also proposing a mix of some permanent and removable flood walls along the East River, but his plan not only addresses infrastructure, it even helps homeowners who can't afford to elevate their homes.
Under our proposal, if you take action to protect your home from flooding, like raising electrical systems or boilers out of the floodplain, your insurance premiums will drop.
Music to the ears of those from areas hardest hit by Sandy.
They're going to keep living by the shore, so we have to protect them as much as we can. I will take to my last day the images that I saw on that Tuesday morning after the storm, and we have to do everything we can to ensure that that never plays itself out.
The price tag for getting this all done, about $19.5 billion. The mayor says most of it is covered, but it's up to the next mayor to get it all done. In Brooklyn, Samantha Liebman, Files 1 News.
All right, Samantha, thank you. And Dominic, that sounds like me, a little legacy building. We'll get to the math in a second, but whenever a mayor says this is the right thing to do, it's going to be the next person, though, that's going to have to do it. That's a great little
But kudos to Bloomberg, and here's why. Here's a clear example of why having a billionaire for the mayor of New York was a good idea. What's the one thing history has shown us with the Democratic mayors, and even with Giuliani for the most part? They basically run the budgets with one-shot deals, and the money comes and the money goes. Bloomberg, early on in his as a mayor, he put aside a fund, he called it a rainy day fund, in which you save money, proactive, looking towards the future. So you have to give this guy credit. He's looking towards when the next disaster is going to hit. If it doesn't hit, great thing. We still have the money in the budget. Great idea.
How do you think, but he's still short about half.
Right.
And
Right,
and that's even counting money from the Feds
that's
coming in
the price tag stays where it is.
You're right, and that's a major if. How can he sell? Who is the constituency that he's trying to get more money out of? New York City residents to go in their pockets? I mean, obviously it's the next mayor. I know that. Is it the Feds to do the right thing?
It's always the Feds, and it's always Albany. And I'm sure Albany will pony up some of it, but the argument he's going to hear, it's almost like a broken record. We don't have any money. We don't have additional funds. But it's still a great idea. His heart is in the right place. Hopefully the next mayor will agree. There are several initiatives of Bloomberg that you know are done day one, perhaps like his bicycle program around the city and so on, and some of his healthcare initiatives, but this one's a good idea.
Stop and frisk.
Right.
The question, though, listen, I joke around, but I'm 1,000% in the mayor's corner here. And by the way, this should apply to governors up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Exactly. This is going to happen. It drives me nuts that the immediacy, once people, they can move back in their houses, it's not their fault, but the issue goes away. This is the definition of penny wise, pound foolish. It's going to keep happening. It's going to happen more frequently. It's going to get more expensive. It's going to get more deadly. And we just seem to just say, yeah, this sucks, and move on to the next thing because we've got enough problems. But this is going to happen. And I hate covering storms, but I'm going to be doing it a lot more frequently in my life.
And it's interesting. I give the mayor kudos once again for the $20 billion, but I think it's $20 billion too late. We're talking about 8 months later. We're talking about people who have literally lost everything. And I don't know if you've actually had the opportunity to venture down. Sure. People have lost their homes, people have lost their lights, people have families. And so for the government, both the federal government, for Albany, and even the city government to say, well, we're still trying to get the money. It's like, well, wait a minute, what are we waiting for? People are literally suffering, and they've been doing so for 8 months. So once again, I give kudos back to Mayor Bloomberg. I agree with Dominic that his heart is in the right place, but I think it's a little too late.
So you support efforts to try to stem climate change?
I support.
Since that's what's causing it.
I support getting the help that people need right away and not waiting 8 months
Why
later.
why not go after the cure instead of just the symptoms?
And listen, I don't disagree with that, but I think when you're talking about 8 months and we're talking about people literally not having lights, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, money needs to come from somewhere.
I suggest you talk to a friend called Ted Cruz, who headlined the state Republican Party, who said no and no again for that money to come to New York, but for another time. All right, coming up next, we will change the panel a little bit here and bring in our two New York partisans that we talk to every week for a good old-fashioned New York City brawl. They're going to talk about everything from Cuomo's women's agenda to the mayoral race. New York, it's straight ahead. Stay with us.